ensuring that you have that clarity of instructions in the collection instruction.
Documentary collections are often referred to as that middle ground between open account finance and letters of credit.
Basically a bank intermediated product. It's the exchange of documents for payment or the promise to pay by the corporate at a future date.
Documentary collections remain one of trade finance's most widely discussed instruments. Sitting between open account trade and documentary credits, they continue to offer a practical balance of risk mitigation and cost efficiency, particularly in established trading relationships and emerging markets. That's beginning to change with the launch of our new practical guides to documentary collections over here, which is developed by the International Chamber of Commerce, BAFT and Trade Treasury Payments. And the guide really does provide an update for the industry, talking about operational practice, digitalisation and the role of collections in today's liquidity and risk management environment. We're delighted to be joined by Boran at Lloyds Bank, one of the contributors of the guide, about why collections remain relevant, what practitioners still misunderstand about collections, and why now was the right time to revisit this overlooked instrument. John, welcome.
Thanks, Dipesh. Glad to be here.
Good to have you here. So where do documentary collections sit today within that trade finance toolbox, and why do they still matter in a world operated by open account trade?
So I think, as you've explained, they sit in the middle ground really between an LC, where there is a bank undertaking to pay if the documents are compliant, and an open account trade. So it's basically a bank intermediated product. It's the exchange of documents for payment or the promise to pay by the corporate at a future date.
Thank you. And this guide comes almost a decade after the 2018 BAFT collections manual. Why would you say now was the right time to provide an update to it, especially with that internationally focused reference?
Yeah, so the BAFT guide's a really great guide. We've referenced it multiple times in the new guide. I think a lot has changed over the last, I think it's 6 or 7 years since that guide has been produced. Digitalisation is a big thing. We have a whole chapter on here on digitalisation. The EURC rules came out, I think, a year after that guide was published. So we have some really great case studies about digitalisation of collections, some POCs, some that are actually live transactions that are happening on a regular basis now. Also, the guide that BAFT wrote was kind of wider in scope than ours. We focused just on documentary collections. It focused on check collections as well, that guy did. But in terms of jurisdictions, it focused a lot on the US market. This guide is more focused on the application of the URC rules globally.
Thank you. Now, documentary collections are often referred to as that middle ground between open account finance and letters of credit. Where are the biggest misunderstandings about that risk allocation in documentary collections?
I think a lot of the biggest misunderstandings come down to unclear instructions, really. One of the key things that URC calls out and our guide focuses on is ensuring that you have that clarity of instructions in the collection instruction. When there isn't clarity of instructions and banks don't seek clarity, there can be issues that cause disputes. Another problem is when collections are, a lot of corporates may look at collections and treat them as if they're an LC. They think that potentially by submitting a collection, there is some form of promise to get payment and the payment will be forthcoming. But ultimately, it's always the buyer, the drawee, as we call them in a collection, who decides whether they are willing to pay for those documents or not, regardless of what those terms are.
Thank you. And I guess, where would you say collections have the most commercial use today? Is it perhaps in emerging markets? Is it commodities? Is it SMEs? Is it specific trade corridors?
So I don't think it's necessarily specific trade corridors. It's more around the risk allocation. So it is that middle ground product where there is a certain level of trust between the parties, but they wish to use a bank to exchange those documents for payment or promise to pay. It's also in areas where there's cost sensitivity. Collections are a lot cheaper than, say, an LC, because then you're not paying for the bank's undertaking as well. And thirdly, I would say there are some areas where there are FX controls, where open account trade is harder. And in those countries, we see a lot more collections.
Thank you. And the guide highlights discipline under the Uniform Rules of Collection, or URC 522, and what you mentioned earlier, the E rules, the electronic rules, or EURC. Where do banks still see the biggest practical mistakes in how collections are used?
So, I mean, we cover quite a lot of these in the guide. Again, it does come down to unclear instructions a lot of the time. If there is an unclear instructions, normally the bank who is receiving those instructions will go back, if it's the remitting bank, to the principal, if it's the presenting bank, to the remitting bank, and ask for clarity. And that basically takes a lot of time and slows down the transaction. The worst problems happen when they don't seek that clarity. Also, sometimes there's a lack of understanding of the underlying rules. One of the things we see a lot is requests for documents against acceptance, but no form of acceptance is forthcoming. There's no bill of exchange sent with the documents. An article, I think it's Article 8 of URC, says that therefore the bank can create the documents on behalf of the drawee, but sometimes that causes disputes because the remitting bank might not be aware of that. Those are the main areas where we see issues. Other issues, and we cover these in the guide, the guide isn't just around URC, it's around practices that have developed on the outskirts of URC. So we look at documents in trust facilities, discounting, avalisation. All of these things are customs that have come about over the years in collections, but they're not covered by URC. So they're covered by local law, and disputes can occur in these scenarios because people aren't necessarily clear exactly how they will be treated.
So understand the instructions. Now, digitalisation, of course, is accelerating trade finance. Many people will know you for the work that you've done and being instrumental in digitalising some of those trade documents. Would you say that this collections guide is even more relevant, and particularly in a world of increased adoption of digital trade frameworks like the model law and electronic transferable records?
Yeah, so one of the reasons I wanted to get involved in this guide was because we're transforming collections at Lloyds. We are trying to do them end-to-end digitally. We've done a lot of them across a number of different jurisdictions over the last couple of years, and we do offer the digital collections to our clients now. And we've seen lots of benefits from that. We've seen transaction times come down from weeks and months down to days, and in some cases hours. We've seen complete removal of courier of documents and associated cost savings. And in one of the use cases I think we released last year, we've seen examples of acceleration of that working capital. If acceptance can be reached quicker, and we are discounting or funds are being advanced in some way, those funds are getting to the seller quicker than they would before. So the guide does contain some great case studies, not just from Lloyds, from other banks as well, from a variety of fintechs that are involved in the digital document space. So hopefully that will be of interest to the banking community.
Thank you. And talking of the banking community, here we are at IC Banking Commission here in Paris. What updates are you seeing, perhaps not just from Lloyds, but for many of the other banks represented here today, in terms of updating digital documents and digital document acceptance?
So I think uptake is still from a very low base on the digital transactions. And I think that uptick will come when there are more digital documents, digital bills of lading, digital bills of exchange. We are hopefully moving in that direction. I know at Lloyds we've seen a massive growth on the digital documentary trade side of 4 times compared to 2025 to 2024. We're on course for a similar growth in 2026. So hopefully that will start to move across the whole of the Banking Commission. We will see that growth as we move to 2030 and the targets for 100% EBL. And then the e-rules will become more and more relevant as we move forward.
Thank you. And for those Banking Commission members, for those that perhaps are interested in the guide and they want to actively expand their collections offering, what are 3 controls you would insist on?
I think it's hard to pick out 3. The guide covers lots of different things. I think one thing that the guide covers, and again, this is probably changed a lot in the last 20 years, even in the space from 2018 when the BAFT guide came out, is compliance, fraud, financial crime. There's a lot of tools out there. We've heard about some of them today at the Banking Commission. that can support collections. Collections used to be seen as a kind of trade finance light product. It probably isn't the case now. Our main controls are all around financial crime sanctions, and we cover off a lot of that in the guide. So I think having a robust policy around that, and what it comes down to is the understanding of the rules. The rules are the key thing for collections, understanding those rules, ensuring you get clarity in instructions, and making sure you have the right controls in place for financial crime. I would say those are the three most important things.
And moving forwards, final question, where would you like to see the uptake of collections being in perhaps 5 years from now?
So I love documentary trade. It's my background. I know that open account is the growth area in trade. I don't think collections is ever going to really be more than a kind of niche product. We call out in the guide, I think 1% of international trade is covered by collections. But I think collections will still continue to thrive. The tools that we've got, the digital tools, will help with that. I would like to see, in 5 years' time, we'll be in 2031. So I would like to see the vast majority of transactions being done digitally by then. And I think there'll be a lot more case studies. We might not be doing it digitally in exactly the same way we're doing it today. Things are likely to change, but hopefully paper will not be as present as it is today in documentary collections.
Thank you very much, John Boran. That was John, and a very apt title, Head of Future Products, Transaction Banking Products at Lloyds Bank, and co-author of the Practical Guides to Documentary Collections, which is now available to download for free with the QR code on your screen now. Thanks, John.
Thank you.